Alright, let's talk about the Civil War. This ain't no reenactment. So this is Chapter 13 Study Guide, and now this is the story all about how the South got flipped, turned upside down. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there and tell you how the South got their butts kicked by the North. Alright. We're going to start off by talking about the main people found within this chapter. First up is Jefferson Davis. He was the president of the Confederacy after the South seceded from the North. Dorothea Dix. She organized a large number of women to help out with the war efforts. The women during this time were known for taking on jobs that weren't ordinarily theirs. Some women helped out with the war efforts by being nurses and caring for those who were sick or wounded. Other women made ammunition, while some women disguised themselves and actually fought in the war. Other jobs that they took on included teaching, office jobs, and manufacturing jobs. The main general of the Confederate Army was Robert E. Lee.
If trouble comes your way, just ask for me. My friends all know me as General Lee.
Yeehaw. The General Lee. Not that General Lee. On the Union side was a general named Ambrose Burnside. Union soldiers were called Yankees. Not that Yankee. That Yankee. During this time, there were people who favored negotiation talks of peace with the South. These people were called the Copperheads. The Union Army in the East was called the Army of the Potomac. John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln on April 14, 1865 at Ford's Theater. Abraham Lincoln would die later on of these wounds. Even though they lost the war, the Confederate soldiers were known for being very courageous.
What makes the hot job so hot? What puts the apron cuffs? What have they got that I ain't got? Courage.
You could say that again.
Ulysses S. Grant declared that there will be no terms other than unconditional and immediate surrender by the Confederate Army. He got the nickname of Unconditional Surrender, U.S. Grant. Abraham Lincoln was quoted as saying, if the Union could be saved by freeing no slaves, or if the Union could be saved by freeing all slaves, or if the Union could be saved by freeing some and not others, he would do it. States that are on the border were Missouri, Kentucky, Delaware, and Maryland. The Confederate capital was Richmond, Virginia. Now let's talk about some of the key battles of the Civil War. Fort Sumter was the first victory of the Confederate Army. It was also known as the first battle of the Civil War. The first Battle of Bull Run was another Confederate victory. The battle at Shiloh resulted in enormous casualties for both the North and the South. The battle at Gettysburg was a 3-day-long battle that ended with victory for the Union. Antietam was the bloodiest day of the Civil War. The battle at Vicksburg gave the Union control of the Mississippi River. The March to the Sea was the advancement of General Sherman's troops all the way to Savannah, Georgia. There was a lot of bloodshed. In 1862, the Union failed to capture Richmond. The reason being is General McClellan gave the South time to prepare a defense. Stinking McClellan. Now let's discuss some of the consequences of war. I know, war stinks. People die. The Union soldiers were known for taking over southern areas and completely destroying all the property. The roads, the railways, the houses, the farms, burning it to the ground. There were 3 main consequences to this war. Number 1, it really strengthened the federal government. Number 2, the South lost and were really bitter about it. And number 3, millions of African Americans were freed. 3 advantages that the North had over the South. Number 1, they had a larger population. Their army was bigger. Number 2, they had more ships, roads, and railways, so they can transport goods and food and weapons more easily. And number 3, they had the brilliance of Abraham Lincoln. When General Lee realized that continual fighting was going to do no good, and that the South was really going to lose anyway, he decided to surrender. The purpose of a blockade was to cause shortage of goods and weapons to the South. These were highly effective. The state of Maryland was the most important state to the Union. On January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln declared the Emancipation Proclamation. No more slavery. In 1865, the 13th Amendment declared that all peoples were free in America. Abraham Lincoln's attitude towards the South after victory was one of compassion and wanting to help rebuild the South. He wasn't vengeful. During this time, someone could avoid the draft by hiring someone else to fight for them. During this time, the Southern Army was really known for their courage. Even though sick, poor, hungry, and losing, they never gave up fighting. Southerners were extremely devoted to their homeland and to their way of living. They were even willing to fight in some of the harshest conditions. For this reason, they were really tough to defeat. Well, that is the study guide. Hope that you guys will study this well and do fantastic on your tests. All right. Ford Theater? Hold on, Siri will know. What theater was Abraham Lincoln assassinated?
Okay, give me a moment. Here's what I found on the web for what theater was Abraham
Ford's
Lincoln
Theater.
assassinated.